And so we are back, continuing on with chapter 4. Weather is nice today. As I record this, there's a nice thunderstorm going on over top of me right now, so you might hear a little of that. So let's see if I can manage to get the screen share up without having to go through a bunch of stuff. And no, I can't. So let's get out of this and reduce this down. Whoops, full screen. Hello, hello. So how do I get to my... Aha! There we go. So it doesn't appear that I'm improving with this. It appears that I am still struggling. So this is our Mosby's Fundamentals of Therapeutic Massage electronic version. And let's open the book. And I think if I click right here, we'll be right where we want to be. Medical terminology. So this is pretty standard. There are online, separate online courses that you can take that can teach you this. There are some really good books that you can get that can teach you this. So I'm not going to try to have a particular class with this. We will learn to use medical terminology over and over and over. So here we go. So I am a little distracted because my little icon up here is a little odd. So I am going to turn the video off. And that didn't help. So now I'm going to turn it back on. So here we go. Again, read your section objectives. Make sure you understand how this fits into the whole chapter. And there's a lot of tables and charts here. This is a memorization issue. This is how you study this. And this is one area where flashcards and doing various not Scrabble, but crossword puzzles and that sort of thing helps with the learning. So this is something you just have to do. There's no sense in lecturing this. It's a foundational pattern of learning communication. So there you go. And I know this can be tedious, and sometimes it just is what it is. So nobody in the health profession gets away with not learning medical terminology, and it really can help you figure out the meaning of words. So there are helps available for you. There are suggestions to go outside of the typical curriculum at the school. And your science text, Essential Sciences, also talks about this, as well as the online course that goes with that text. So there's lots of opportunity to do this. So this is a memorization learning structure. Then we have, as this is part of how we then describe where we're going and what we're doing. And that is your directional terminology and the positional terms. And again, this is just something you have to do. Move yourself around and, you know, speak out loud, look in a mirror, put your hand on the body part and continue to repeat and repeat and repeat with this. Say the words out loud. If you don't say them out loud, you will always stumble and feel uncomfortable with how you are pronouncing the words. Now, I know I can really murder some pronunciation. And that, you know, you just have to keep at it. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to get with that. So this segment is pretty black and white in the textbook. So here we go. And of course, this is going to mirror the science book. And this section right here, body structure and bones, joints, and muscles, it's not meant to be an anatomy course. It's meant to be in the book in order to support learning how you would use this language for assessment and documentation. So do the activities and the proficiency exercises. They're helpful. They're using that idea of transferring short-term memory to long-term memory. And here we go. And here we go again. And here we go even more. And the other body systems now are going to be briefly described. So here's the picture of the muscular system. This is surface anatomy, more so than the deeper layers. There's generalized nervous system. Now you're not a neurologist, nor are you a cardiologist, but you do need to know the location of these major vessels and major nerve tracts, so that you don't, they're sensitive to pressure. So you don't want to apply excessive pressure where these nerves and vessels are located throughout the body. Lymph system, your immune system, how all the body systems work together. And then we have our the last four. So this is organized a lot like the Essential Science book. Breathing is a place in our physiology where we have voluntary control as well as involuntary control, and it's an access point to the autonomic nervous system, our internal nervous system, also our gut system, our enteric system. That's why you see a lot of relaxation approaches involve controlled breathing, and a lot of our stress management approach with massage is to make sure that the thorax is as pliable as it can be to support an efficient breathing pattern that regulates the restorative nature of the autonomic nervous system. Our wonderful digestive system, for some reason, test writers like to have you know the names, like on the NBLEX exam, like you to know the names of the parts of the digestive system. And while we may be able to indirectly, mechanically affect some of the digestive structures, more than likely we are supporting as good a function as possible through the autonomic nervous system with that. And the nervous system and the endocrine system are integrated. And so if we affect one, we affect the other. And we touch the skin. So you need to understand the skin and how it's put together. and how it functions and how it repairs itself and renews itself. Now this part, documentation, this is a process learning. So this is not necessarily about facts and definitions like the area that we just finished. This is where you would use those terms. And what's nice about terminology is you can look it up. You can get definitions. You can use Google search programs or programs with medical dictionaries. There's one on Medline Plus or others that you can use. And in the beginning, when you're starting to create professional documentation, make sure that you start out with your common language that you're comfortable with, and then translate it into the scientific language. And that's how you'll learn to do that. So write it down first the way you, what did you see? What did you do? And then look at that and go, okay, what did I see? I saw a scaly patch on the skin on the top of the head. So how would you use your medical terminology to describe that a little bit more professionally? What we tend to use, and there's lots of styles, is a problem-oriented medical record, and most of this is now done electronically. And in small practices, you might still learn you still might use paper records. At Health Enrichment Center, we teach you on paper. We use a generalized SOAP note, SOAP, to teach you because it follows the critical thinking model and the scientific model. If you can do that type of documentation, you can adapt to any of the other styles that are out there. So this box gives you a little bit more overview on what that is. So here is your general outline, subjective, objective assessment and analysis, your plan. And we discuss specifically what each of these means and what category you would put stuff in. So every time you see a client, you would have a progress note that would follow, for us, a SOAP note format. And I have also turned that into a checklist type system so that you can see how that type of documentation process can be incorporated. The session notes reflect what our treatment plan and our intake has identified as our goals. And so we talked about that a little bit in chapter 2, and we'll talk about it much more in chapter 10. But it's important that you have a general idea about what this is right now so you can start thinking that way. We also, in chapter 2, talked about the confidentiality of the client records and how we react professionally to that. So as I mentioned previously, we are teaching this as a process. You'll start now with your common language and continue to translate that over time into the more scientific professional language. And the reinforcement that comes throughout the program. So don't be afraid to stumble over it in the beginning, because you will get better through the doing. You got to do it in order to improve. So here is a little bit more information about the categories of content in a SOAP note. I already mentioned a little bit about qualifiable and quantifiable goals. One you measure and one is an activity. Um, different styles of charting are outlined here. Um, I, I personally think that the SOAP pattern supports critical thinking and follows the scientific method. So it's good for teaching at entry level, but that doesn't mean that you can't use a more simplified version once you go into professional practice. So your intake, you collect information, you have a history form, you do a physical assessment, and here's an example, and there are a lot of examples. So this is just one of a client intake and health history form. This you would fill out at the beginning of a session, beginning of a relationship with the client, the first time you see the client, and it would be updated periodically. So this is an example of a physical assessment form. Again, there are many different kinds out there, but this embraces the information you would find. And this is more what you identify that a person, what you can see, what a person can touch, how they can move, and how you would collect the initial data there. From that information, you then, in your initial session, and sometimes it takes multiple sessions to do this, you would create a treatment plan. This is what I'm going to do over the next few sessions in order to achieve this goal. Now, if you're only going to see a client one time, then you're not going to be able to have a comprehensive treatment plan. And massage does do that. People will get a massage on a cruise ship, for example, or when they're on vacation. And the outcome there is generalized well-being and relaxation. You can't develop a treatment plan that is going to support stress management or pain management or functional mobility in one session. So just kind of keep that in mind. And that care plan then guides the relationship, the therapeutic relationship. This is the construct, this is the rules, this is the platform upon which we're going to work. And it helps support professional boundaries. And then every time you see the client, you will have your SOAP note or your progress note. And here is an example that we have in the textbook that has some little helps in it. Like here, client status, it tells you what that means. This is subjective, the client is telling you that. And then it kind of gives you a little helps to figure out what you would put in there. And it does the same all the way through. So the analysis we've got clarified, because that's sometimes that's called assessment, and that can be a little confusing about what that actually means. And so we've got some guidance there to help you out with that. Certainly not the only form you can use, but it's a good one to learn on. Now, obviously, we're moving more and more and more into electronic documentation. And so I suggest that you do some searching about the various programs that are available for massage therapy. Sometimes they will give you a trial that you can practice with. And then in your own professional practice, you can decide what you want to do. And make sure, even if you are in a little solo practice and you decide to continue to do paper records, that you understand the importance of this, because it really is the future. So this now is going to get us into some of the critical thinking that goes along with this, and how the progress note, the whole intake procedure is an example of a critical thinking process that's embedded throughout the entire textbook. And that takes us to the end of the chapter. This is not one that you're going to necessarily absorb in a week or 2 weeks. This is one you're going to keep working at over and over and over and over and over. As we go into the last part of this, our features at the end of chapter, learn more on the web, along with the Evolve site that expands on learning supports for you. This for HEC is delivered on your Canvas site. And references, do click out to these references and see what's being done there so that you can, textbook's date. As soon as it's written, anything that changes after that, you're going to have to find other ways to stay updated. So when you look at these different websites and resources, they can make sure that you're staying current. Now, chances are the information isn't going to date a lot, but as a professional, as a student learning to be a professional, it is, as well as the teachers, it's important for us to regularly check and make sure that the information that we're chatting about is still correct. Here are your questions again. You know how to do these. You know that the answers and rationales are on the Evolve site under content updates, and for HEC students, they're right on Canvas for you. Always make sure that you know why the right answer is right and the wrong answers are wrong. And this chapter in particular sets the stage for the language used to write questions. So make sure you do your due diligence with this and discuss them in class and write your own questions. So this finishes this unit, and the next unit we'll be looking at, it talks a little bit more about, it gets into the whole idea of research and more on critical thinking and indications and contraindications. That doesn't mean you're done with this unit or done with these chapters. The textbook is written again on a spiral format where the information, I'm making a little spiral here, where the information goes round and round and round, each time a little bit more complexity. So that means that you're going to want to come back and review these chapters, listen to these videos, so that you're constantly reinforcing the information as you move forward in your education. So here's to speaking clearly.